Good day, everyone. It is Caitlin Kearns.
And I'm Rhett Kearns.
And today we're making a shirt for my husband and introducing you to my husband.
So I'm starting out having Rhett cut this shirt. I have no idea what he did, except he did take one of his old shirts, lay it across the fabric, and because it's a square cut shirt, it's a very simple pattern. They're basically just rectangles. So he measured how wide it was, and then just marked it on the fabric and cut it that way. And kind of did the same thing with the sleeves. It was all very simple and worked really well.
Alright, so let's get sewing. This is my new to me machine. She's from the very early 1870s, 1872 I believe. She's a Wilcox & Gibbs, and she is a treadle machine. So the other Wilcox & Gibbs I have is actually my friend Amy's that she let me borrow, and this one is mine. And it is also not a hand crank, which makes me very happy because I'm not a huge fan of hand cranks. Even though they are very portable, it's this is much faster to sew on. She sews amazingly once I got her in the right type of thread. She's not a huge fan of thick threads. She likes thin threads. But we're going to go ahead and sew this up. So what I've done so far is I've just sewn up the sleeve, and then I cut off half of the back side. So that's just going to be for the run and fell seam. And I'm also going to hem this very bottom here. And the new machine's name is Wilma, because she's a Wilcox & Gibbs and W-I-L, and I just did M-A because it sounds like a girl's name, but it still kind of fits the Wilcox & Gibbs. So I'm just folding this over. It's called a run and fell stitch. It is actually not run and fell because we are doing it by machine, but we call the stitch the same. Even though technically we're not doing it a running stitch, which would be by hand. This is an easy way to get rid of those raw edges and strengthen the seam at the same time. This is actually the first time I'm laying eyes on Wilma. I purchased her via Facebook Marketplace because my friend Susan saw her and was like, "You need this machine." So I ended up with another machine. She was in Dallas. My sister went to pick her up because my sister lives in Dallas. And then Rhett took her here. So I have not actually seen her before today. I'm also going to do that with the other side as far as the hemming goes. And then I have one more sleeve to do. And I guess we can go ahead and start stitching up the top. But yeah, I definitely wanted to introduce everyone to Wilma. And she's probably not going to be a regular staple on the channel simply because she's not at the house right now. She's at the fort because we don't have space at the house for her. So they are very kindly letting me keep her at Fort McCabe for right now. So unfortunately, until I get her to the house, she's not going to be, a staple. Okay, so now typically I would be, hand gathering the cuffs or the bottom of the sleeve so I could put in the cuffs. However, I don't have very much daylight. I'm going to have to go back home, and that means I'm only going to have the hand crank Wilcox & Gibbs to work on. So I'm trying to get all my big long seams out of the way now. So we're going to do these a little bit out of order and a little bit unconventionally. But I am going to go ahead and, because I have this pin in here, cut up the center of the front, or cut down the center of the front because I need to put in a placket at some point. I don't know if I'm going to get that done here simply because I haven't cut out the placket yet. And that might be a daylight issue, but I wanted to go ahead and do that. And let's see here. So this is the top shoulder, and I'm going to mark about even with the sleeve and put a pin. Red is getting me another shirt so that I can actually see how these things are put together because I don't know what I'm doing. not all the way down, just about a sleeve length down, because we're going to leave this part as a flap open to kind of go over the hips. So we're going to sew from here to here, the front and the back. Thank you.
Is that selvage edge going to show on the outside?
No, because it's actually not even that type of selvage. It's just a printed selvage.
Okay. So, where are we at?
Right now I'm sewing the side seams together. I need to know how much of a shoulder to sew, because I can go ahead and sew that.
We need to measure the collar piece.
Would you mind cutting me a collar piece from that? If you have the time. If you don't have the time, it's okay. I'll get it.
You want fabric scissors?
Ooh. I don't think so. I just have these tiny little shears.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have known about that, and I should have had you bring some from the
I don't
warehouse.
have any, but basically you're going to measure the collar.
Okay.
You're
Can I bring that home with me?
Yes.
Awesome.
Wait, what? Bring what?
The shirt.
Well, yeah, of course. I thought you were going to use the hand crank on it.
I guess I will be using the hand crank for part of it.
That's right.
So my goal right now is to get as much as the big long seams done as possible while I'm on the fast machine.
Mm-hmm. We might have some shirt patterns over there.
So I'm trying really hard, like, not to do the fiddly parts, like the collar and I just want to do like the side seams and the shoulder seams, and whatever I can physically do I can do really fast on this machine.
Okay.
So what I really just need to know is how far, because this is the top. I need to know how far.
You made the slit?
Yeah, I made the slit. Do you sew it all the way to the slit?
No.
I didn't think so. Okay, the lighting is really bad because it's getting dark. So this may be the last time I film while I'm here. I'm going to really try to talk Rhett into let me bring her home, which is my machine. And I think I can fit her upstairs now that I have it cleaned out. So I'm kind of hoping he'll let me put her in the car today. And she says that, and I say that, and she immediately decides to screw up. What are you doing? I promise you it's nicer at the house. There's air conditioning. Okay, that helped. The unfinished sleeves anyway, which we should be finishing them before we do that. However, we're going off book today. So at a friend's house, we are working on the cuff to the sleeve, and the original we're basing this off of had a velvet cuff and a velvet placket on the neck. What do we call that? Neck. The cut.
Placket?
Placket. Okay, so it is a placket. Okay. Rhett is cutting out the placket in just a second, but I have the cuff here. I'm just using some cotton velveteen, which very well mimics a period cotton velvet. That way it's the same, I guess, fiber as the sleeve that we're working with for washing purposes. Next step will be putting the sleeve into the arm's eye. Alright, so we're on another Wilcox & Gibbs. This is a little bit of a later model. This is my friend Amy's, and she's a hand crank, so because I am out of town, I didn't or couldn't bring the treadle. It's at the house now though, so that's a good thing. I have my treadle. But we're going to be using Amy's hand crank, which is not nearly as fast as that treadle. That treadle is really nice. Not that this one isn't. This one's actually, it's a really smooth stitch. It works really well. Wilcox and Gibbs are really nice. I mean, most antique sewing machines are amazing because they're solid. They're very heavy. But generally they don't break, in my experience. Almost all the issues, especially with the Wilcox and Gibbs, if you're having issues with the Wilcox and Gibbs and you have the more modern tension that was created in the 1870s, if you're having issues still, it's likely user error. All of my issues with any of my Wilcox and Gibbs, any Wilcox and Gibbs machine that I've ever stitched on in my life, have all been user error. But the nice thing about a chain stitch, if you don't know, Wilcox and Gibbs is one of many different models in the 1850s and beyond that did a chain stitch machine. So there is no bobbin, there's only a top thread, which is amazing from a sewing standpoint because I can't tell you how annoyed I get when I have to do things like stop my stitching to rewind a bobbin, or I think I'm stitching and I go along and I go along, I get a whole seam done and realize that the bobbin was empty. You don't have that issue with this machine. And so you get a straight stitch on this side, and on the underside it's going to be very hard to see because of the pattern and how fine this thread is, but you get a chain stitch, like an embroidery chain stitch. You do have to tie them off a certain way, otherwise you will have issues with the whole thing just unraveling. If you don't tie it off the right way, or if you just leave it if you cut it off a certain way, it will ravel on you, and then your seam will be gone. So there are drawbacks as well, but it's a really nice machine, and again, the only issues I've had with them have been user error. Now the earlier ones, the 1850s and the 1860s models, and the very, very early 1870s ones, have something called a glass tension, and those typically break. My glass tension, which I do own one that's of this model, the brand is called Mascot, and it is missing its glass tensioner. And those are not easy to come by. I believe there are people trying to recreate them. But as of right now, we don't have anything on the market to replace that. So we have a lot of glass tensioners that are just, the machines aren't working right now because they need that to actually do a stitch. But because this is the more modern tensioner, we don't have that problem. We don't have the glass plate on this particular machine. Nor does my 1870s one have the glass plate. My 1870s is very early 1870s. It was one of the very first machines that was made with the more modern tension.
So for this part, I am just putting on the placket. So just taking this piece of cotton velvet that matches the cuffs, and I'm just stitching it down on the left side of the placket. And then it gets folded over, and I have to top stitch it and then go down and back up again to kind of hold everything together, and that's all I'm doing here. After the placket gets put on, I get to put on the collar, which is just basically a straight rectangle. Everything in a shirt is like rectangles. I don't think there's anything that wasn't a rectangle that I got to work with, which is kind of cool and makes it really easy. So I just kind of stitch it right across, and later we'll hand stitch this. For the edges of the collar, I'm just stitching them up, and then I'm later going to trim that seam down a little bit. That way it's even with the edge of the shirt.
Alright, so I have a collar stitched on, and I'm going to turn in these ends. So collar stitched on, and then I have it there, and I stitch it right at the edge. It's really hard to see on camera, so I only go through that footage, but I stitched it right here. And I did the same on the other side. You can see we've already turned that side in. So then take this, flip it inside out. We have this. Now at this point I need my pins. Let's see if we can do this upside down. It might be easier. Make more small fold in and just stitch down. So shirts are actually pretty easy. So something I knew in my head that shirts were easy. That's why I started with one. But yeah, it isn't too bad. It's just knowing what to do. And now that I've made one, I think he has more fabric to make another one, and he's asked me to do it. So I will be making Rhett another shirt soon. I also have fabric that I bought to make him a vest. So we might have to delve into, more complicated menswear. Then I have a sleeve. So after this, I think I have one more end-dyed hem. And I'll probably go use Wilma for that because she's way faster. And it's the same stitch as the other machine, so it'll work. And then I believe after I do this, it's just buttons and buttonholes, but I'll have to double check with Rhett on that. I'm going ahead and stowing the top one because it's already on the velvet, so I figured we didn't need a piece on the back of that. It'll just stick, right? Yeah.
One for that.
Okay. So it's literally just a tiny little piece just to strengthen it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have the buttonhole twist? Thank you. And some scissors. Using silk buttonhole twist for the buttons. It is black on black, so it is hard to see. But this is the last step. We have a completed shirt after this. So here's the finished shirt. And my husband, Rhett. Let's finally get to meet him 2 months after we got married.
It's been that long already?
Yes.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Sure. Then yesterday you said it felt like 2 years that we were married, so.
That was just the last 2 days.
What have I been doing so bad this last 2 days?
Working on my history projects with me.
Like the shirt that I cut out 3 months ago and finally got done.
Just in time for Vicksburg.
Mm-hmm. So we based this shirt off.
There was an unknown Confederate soldier at Vicksburg who had a shirt made for him by a local lady out of a tablecloth. And it had velvet trim. It is not exactly the same color. It is not exactly the same cut. But it goes to show the innovation that people can do when they're under duress and have limited materials.
I'm proud of my first man's project. I think it turned out good.
Let me show you how to make a frock coat.
I think I need to work my way up to that. I think we need to start with vest.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe make a second shirt to perfect it.
It's okay.
Rhett did notice that I did the buttonholes wrong on this part. Apparently they're supposed to go vertically.
It's a easy fix.
And so I'll just cut out this velvet panel and stitch a new one. I mean, it's not very much. I'd have to take out a little bit of the collar, and then I can just do this one section again and then do the vertical buttonholes. Horizontal buttonholes were correct because I did ask specifically about this. I showed him this cuff and I was like, so buttonholes go this way, right? And he said yes, but then I didn't clarify that this was going to be different. So that was a learning experience.
It's okay. I've yet to make a woman's garment.
So I'm ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
I think the color looks really good. So I have a dress almost in this exact same pattern that we made on the channel actually. It's just a purple color in the background instead of the blue. And Rhett saw it and he was reminded of the shirt that he saw in the book. And he said, can you make me a shirt out of that? Well, I went looking. I couldn't find any more of that exact fabric. They were also out, it's a discontinued fabric. But I was able to find the same fabric in a different colorway. So we're slightly different, but we do technically have matching outfits. So
there are plenty of examples of paisley shirts in the 1850s and 60s that citizens and soldiers alike wore.
It was just the velvet was a little different because that was specific to the one tablecloth shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Let me turn around and see that. Yeah, I like that color on you too. It looks really good. Oh, then I guess that's about it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Rhett should be starting his own channel pretty soon, so I'll be announcing that. And they'll be doing a lot more men's clothing and mostly probably 1830s to 1945 clothes.
Roughly.
Kind of similar to my channel, but with the men's style. So I'll keep the women's and the children's stuff on my channel, and he'll do the men's stuff on his channel. And we'll collaborate randomly between the two channels. But yeah. Thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic week, and see you next time.
And then if you have a girlfriend or a wife, make sure you get one that can sew. You will not regret it.